Okay, we're on. Here we go.
Let's go.
We have Grace and Grace. Okay, Bill, when I ask for public comment, I want you to run down to the seat, come up.
Okay, all right.
Okay, is Grace on? Somebody bring up Grace. Grace.
Oh, Grace.
Yeah, I think she said she was gonna be on. I should give her the chance.
She just said,
You got it, Rod?
Yes.
quorum.
Yes. Okay, okay.
Do we need to call her then?
Grace got,
Grace's side, yeah, she can't jump on right now, so, yeah. So I think we've got quorum.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting for Wednesday, August 7th. Would everybody please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we please have a roll call?
You may. Mr. Abdallah. Mr. Azar.
Here.
Mrs. Henderson. Mrs. Hillebrand. Mrs. Karam.
Here.
Mr. Moran.
Here.
Mr. Robeson.
Here.
Mrs. Tierney.
Here.
And Mr. Acker.
Here.
Thank you so much. 6 present.
May I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Passes
Uh,
6.
Dr. Schaefer, Superintendent's report.
Yes.
Do you want to have public comment before that?
Yeah, we can have public comment before.
Okay, I don't think we're going to have any public comment. There is no one in the auditorium, so
All right.
we'll
that
move
was
on to the
great.
superintendent's report.
Okay. So tonight, Dr. Vitale is going to be presenting some perceptual data from our district-wide climate survey. Over the next month, we're going to be chunking this really into 2 different categories. On August, I believe it is the 21st,
21st.
we'll be providing a more extensive presentation on the district-wide climate survey. This is our 3rd annual climate survey where we asked the same questions of our students, teachers, and parents. And as a result, we develop goals at each building around that as we continue to define excellence and focus inside and outside of our classrooms. This was the first year that we asked some questions about cell phone usage. We asked this of our teachers, students, and parents, very similar to our district-wide survey. Tonight, Dr. Vitale is going to show the board and the community results of that survey. I just want to make it clear tonight that this is not a decision-making night. There is not a decision to be made. This is a time where we can look at the data, right? And like many different surveys that we take and results that we look at, I often leave with more questions. And oftentimes that means I have to, alongside my colleagues, go back to either the students, the teachers, and the families and ask more in-depth questions to get a better understanding about some of the responses. But either way, as we become more data dependent, we use this to inform our discussions and make sure that we are at the ground level with our students and our teachers and our parents, so we have a better understanding of what they're going through. This is a great first step. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to Dr. Vitale.
All right, thank you. So as Dr. Schaefer said, this is data from our spring 2024 climate survey, this is the first time we've ever asked these cell phone questions, so there will be no comparative data. So first, let's just start with who responded to the survey. So we had just under 1,600 students respond. We give this survey to students 5 through 12, so about 73% of our student population responded. 30% of our parents responded, which doesn't sound like an amazing response rate. However, it's still over 1,000 responses from our parents, which is actually a really good sampling. And if you look at survey data, 30% is actually a positive response rate. Faculty and staff responses, we had 317 responses, which is more than 88% of our personnel. So we feel that we have a good sampling, and we've really been able to listen to the voices of those that we serve. So we're going to first look at the parent cell phone responses. So we asked 5 main questions. Does your student have a phone? Do they take it to school? Do they use the cell phone during the day? Do you believe that your student is distracted by their cell phone? And are you in support of enforcing cell phone rules? So again, we're just really looking at high school and middle school. A lot of our elementary parents responded to this, that cell phones, either their student doesn't have a cell phone or they don't bring it to school. So I kind of cut that out, and we're just really focusing on middle school and high school. So as you can see, almost 9 out of 10 students at the middle school have a phone, and almost every student at the high school has a phone. So that's just kind of what the parents said. Any questions or thoughts on that? So when we look at cell phone responses from our students, we asked, do you have a phone? Do you take it to school? Then we asked the question of, do you use it during the school day? And we kind of quantified it as frequently, sometimes, not much, or no. Then we asked, are you in support of enforcing cell phone rules? And as we would predict, students said no, basically. And then we also kind of wanted to dig deeper to understand how they were using their phone. Are they checking emails, text messages, social media, using a calculator, something school-related, other, or do they not use their phone? As you can see, most of our students are responding that they have phones, they do take them to school, but they are reporting to us that they're not using them during the school day. So a majority is saying that they are not using them during the school day. Any thoughts or feedback on that? Any takeaways? I don't want to go too quickly, but I also don't want to belabor it. So then we asked our teachers very similar questions. So we asked our teachers at the middle school and the high school, are you concerned about students using their cell phone during the school day? And almost every teacher at the high school said yes at 97%, and about 8 out of 10 at the middle school said yes, they are concerned about students using their phones. We tried to drill that down a little bit more to say, where are you seeing students use their phones? In the classroom, cafeteria halls, and bathrooms, or you're not seeing it being used? And as you can see at the high school, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 cases is basically every location teachers are witnessing students using their phones, and it's about a 70% average at the middle school in those areas. In our handbook, it does say that cell phones should be off and stowed away, and students should not be using them in any of these locations. So that's currently the language in the student handbook. The next question we asked is, are students distracted by their cell phone during the school day? Is it distracting to the learning environment? And 86% of our teachers at the high school believe that the cell phone is a distraction, and about 53% of the teachers at the middle school believe that it's a distraction. So it seems to be a little bit more significant at the high school, but still concerning at the middle school. And then some of our teachers choose to have placeholders for cell phones, whether it's like a calculator caddy or they use shoe racks on the door. So we just wanted to kind of capture who was doing that and was that successful. So less than 20% of our teachers at the high school have a placeholder for cell phones in their classroom, and only a few have a placeholder for it at the middle school. So that is kind of the cell phone responses and the data captured from our students, our teachers, and our parents. I just want to say that filling out these surveys is incredibly important because we really do dive into this data. So for the people who do it, thank you, because your voice matters and it helps us inform our decisions. And we kind of want to open it up to the board now to talk about cell phone use and your stance and what you're thinking about this.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for doing the survey. I know you mentioned it's the first time we did it. I think it's very helpful. Just the initial thought, it's descriptive data. You can't really gather much, and so thank you for sharing it. I think that it's interesting that there's different perceptions across the different groups, clearly. So I think there is something that we can improve on, whether that's from a policy perspective, an enforcement perspective, whatever we do. As a board member, I'd like to see input from because this is really maybe the problem part of it. But the solution part, we should also include, teachers, students, board members, administrators, and see what people come up with. I know that it takes a little more work, but I think we did something similar, or you guys did something similar with the dress code, and that ended up pretty good. People were, I think we improved it.
I agree.
So I think there's that opportunity here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mrs. Tierney?
Mr. Terry?
Yeah, I'd like to hear your response to, were you surprised at all at how the teachers responded to this survey?
I don't know if I was surprised. I anticipated the discrepancy between the students, parents, and teacher perception. So as Mr. Robeson kind of alluded to, there is a disconnect there of just perceptually where they're at. I don't know if any of the information was surprising to me.
Okay.
Okay, I also agree with Phil. I think it's important for us to take this information and then really work with the administration and the teachers who have to implement this and really hear how they feel that there is a distraction in their classroom. I would support whatever decision that the administration and teachers really come up with talking with students to find a solution, because we need to support that ability for a teacher to have an understanding of that they control their classroom, whether it is putting the cell phone somewhere, allowing them to use the cell phone, but we really have to support that. So I would welcome hearing how you're going to work with your teachers and your administration to make this work. Thank you.
Is there any possibility of discussing these issues with other schools in our area or in perhaps the IU, so that we can see what they're seeing, how they solved, how they approached it, perhaps try and benefit from, work others have done?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I echo some of the sentiments I'm hearing here. I'm not surprised by a perception gap. I'm not surprised as a father, and I'm not surprised as an educator. And I take the same stance in both roles. Is like I try to close the gap, right? I know that I'm not going to be on the same page all the time with my kids. They just see things differently than me, and I wonder if I'll ever see it the same way, and that's okay, right? It is okay. But as we dig deep into this, I too want to know from our teachers as I talk to them, like, what gets in the way of what we have? I mean, how can we better support you? And I think to your point, as in talking to other districts, there's a myriad of solutions out there. The degree to which they work, I don't know, but we can find that out by asking. And then the same way with the students, like Dr. Vitale did with the dress code. I mean, because that like cell phones, in my mind, are both deeply personal kind of decisions, and it's your, it's your person, right? It's your property. And then by giving the students some agency and voice in it, they are part of it, and that makes the big difference, right? It's a very slippery slope. There's 1,100 teenagers and very few adults in comparison. So we want to make sure that we're, working with everybody to come up with a common solution.
I think by including all the various stakeholders, as with the dress code, they end up owning the solution, and that's what makes it more effective.
Absolutely.
Mr. Acker. I just want to add one comment. I do agree with what everybody said. I think we need to hear from the teachers and from our administrative leaders in the schools. What would they think is the solution, right? But clearly we have a problem. Almost 100% of the teachers are saying there's a problem. And I do think that after we gather that information, it's incumbent on us to give them some solution, though. Like, we have to do something, because there's not something in place currently that's enabling them to solve this issue. If that many people are saying there's a problem and there's not a solution that they have at their fingertips, like, we have to find out what that is, and then we have to make some sort of policy.
I agree, and much like the dress code, the challenges, and not what they are, and I believe that they're a common ground, but not a but, and there are transactional strategies that we use, much like that with the dress code. Like, yeah, could we supply the teachers and/or students with, you see them all the time, like bags where you could put the phone in and it doesn't ring, it doesn't, it's still in your possession. That's more like a transactional thing. And simultaneously, just like when we talked to the kids about the dress code, they pointed out some inequities that they thought were inherent, some things that were just plain unfair, inconsistencies that they observed. And if you talk to teachers, oftentimes you will hear that as well. So, yes, we're going to have some strategies there, but I also think that we're going to also have some takeaways where we need to kind of think about, our approach to that and how we're treating it. Because right now, in the high school, we defer a lot to the teachers in the classroom, and it's important that they maintain the autonomy and authority to make decisions in their classroom. And on one end, in the other end of the spectrum, I can see someone saying, "Hey, you got to be more strict on this, and this needs to be more black and white." And like many things, somewhere in there is a sweet spot.
Right.
I would hope. So, guess it's a long and short is yes, and we're going to come up with some probably sooner. The transactional things are easier, I think. That we'll have some solutions there, but there'll be some other, challenges that way.
You're talking about the changes in the dress code that were made, and we approved those changes. I have never heard any feedback. Is it successful? Are the teachers still struggling with trying to implement it? Are there infractions? Are there kids still getting detention because, are there issues with the dress code, or has that change been successful?
So I can tell you, every year that I was here, multiple people every week talked to me about the dress code. In the 23-24 school year, no one spoke to me about the dress code, which to me is, it resolved itself. Teachers weren't concerned about it, so no teachers came to me and said this is an issue, and no students came to me. So I don't have the data on discipline consequences, but just anecdotally, nobody was talking about it, which means to me, it wasn't a concern.
I like the analogy of getting the feedback with the dress code versus what we're talking about now, but I also want to be clear, like, if you took that survey about the dress code, I don't think 90% of the teachers would say it's interrupting with the educational process. Like, this has got a lot more urgency to me, but it's the right process, right? To go to the teachers and go to the kids and get feedback. But this has got a lot of urgency. It's all over the map.
Teachers were saying that dress code was a distraction to the learning environment.
But as much as cell phones?
No, but
Yeah,
that was their stance though
Right.
as well, but not
Not
nearly
like
as
this.
significant
Not like
as
this,
this. Absolutely.
To Rod's point, do you have a timeline? Are you looking to gather more information and work with groups before the school year, mid-school year? Where's your timeline of giving the teachers some support with this issue?
So we're in this spot right now where obviously the kids aren't here, but I'll do something similar, and Maggie or Dr. Vitale will be as well. As I mean, it's not going to be nice and well packaged start of the school year. Let's talk about this. It's going to be a little discomforting. But what I did last year is I invited all the seniors up to a cafe, and I told them I'd buy them breakfast if they talked to me. And I'll take a similar kind of stance. I was up at the high school today, and band camp was starting. And then I also saw a couple athletes up there going into weight room. So I'll walk into weight room. I'll start talking to kids. I'll go over to band camp and start talking to them. And I will know, I'm telling you, that's the sample size. All I need to do is, and I see some of your kids around, and I'll talk to them as well. I'll talk to 30 kids, and then I'll have it, and then I'll talk to another 20, and then I'll just know that I really have it. So we'll do that, and like Dr. Vitale said, it's really important to talk to the kids, particularly when we get to the high school, because they are young adults, and we need to treat them as such. And part of our job is to, this is a value statement, okay? To demonstrate the right way to do things, right? And to me, that is to suspend certainty, right? And to seek to understand, like ask, right? Find out what's behind that perspective. That's exactly what we did with the dress code, and albeit they're not apples to apples, but to really get down and be heard with it. So it is our job as educators to kind of model a process, right? So that when they go out and they're at work and they notice a discrepancy between the people they work with and their customers, how might they go about resolving this, right? Or they may think about this, like what worked well, what didn't work so well. So all that to say, it won't happen September the 4th. We'll work it out, but we'll be given the board updates as we kind of move forward with it. But what I want to say here, because I don't want any rumors to start. So, one, we have not sold the pit. This board has not decided to sell a pit. There's no for sale sign. I will reiterate, I'm not even sure if we own all our property. It's a little facetious, but like when you pull the maps, I know we'd have to get it surveyed. So that was a rumor, right?
Right.
Just like it will be a rumor to say that the board has decided to ban cell phones. That is
Right.
absolutely not true. We had a survey, we presented data, and a bunch of adults are talking about it.
Right.
And we'll continue to have discussions. And we would be derelict in our duties if we didn't. Like as Rod said, when you see data like this, you got to continue to ask questions. So
Yeah.
we are not banning cell phones. We did not sell the pit.
Right.
Once again, okay, just want to make sure we're clear on those two things.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Schaefer.
Problem.
Okay, how about, let's move into the action and discussion items.
Okay. So I could ask the board approve a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Sir, I could ask the board to approve the estimated budget proposal for the AHHS musical production staff roles and responsibilities for the 2025 high school musical. They're hearing this for the first time, unless they are looking at board docs, The Sound of Music.
So moved. Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Before I read this motion, this is the third year, and the board has done this, I think, throughout its history, but I just want to reiterate to people that may be listening or some of our new board members, this action item is to provide the superintendent with the authority to hire employees in between board meetings for the school year. Traditionally, this really only happens from now into September, and it's done to safeguard our kids. So if we have somebody that resigns last minute, I'll give you for instance, there's a nurse for one of our students, right? We want to make sure that we can hire a nurse and get that person in instead of waiting a month or 2 weeks. And if that happens, I will email the board confidentially and let them know what I'm doing and if there's any objections. I think I've probably only had to do that maybe 2 or 3 times, and they were for hires related to special education. So, Mr. Acker, I'd ask the board approve the motion for the superintendent to hire employees in between board meetings for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
Yes, I have a couple questions. Dr. Schaefer, do you feel confident that you will be able to hire all of the positions that are advertised currently for some pretty strong academic level positions? Do you feel confident that those will be filled before the school year?
Yeah, I feel pretty confident with where we are. You know, we've had some late resignations, and you know, there will be, I haven't looked at it closely this week, but there are times when we don't, and we get somebody in that classroom, and sometimes it's until you know, somebody is hired. Not unfortunately, but so for instance, if we lose a teacher late, and when I say late, anytime late July, through the state of Pennsylvania, you know, you can hold somebody for 60 days. So there are teachers that are being held that we'll bring in. I don't know how many we have in that. We may not have any, but certainly we still got maybe 3 more weeks to go. So that's something that we kind of, you know, struggle with every year, like every school district, but we've seen to do it. We've had success in filling some very challenging science CTC roles this year that I thought we would be more challenged with. I know that that's not a straight answer, and hope isn't a strategy, but you know, we'll do our best with that.
Well, we've been hearing nationally that there's a real low in teachers. So are you getting good applicants? Are you getting large numbers?
The pool is a little bit shallower than it has been in the past, but the quality is still there.
That's great to hear.
And also I would add that, like, it depends, right, on the position. So for instance, earlier in the summer, we had, over 100 applications for an elementary a teacher, right? Where, yep, two positions.
Oh, two.
And what Maggie talked about is, like, you know, we may have a science position that you're like, how are you going to fill that? We have 2 people that are strong. You may only have 2 applicants, but they're strong applicants. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Acker, asks the board consider a motion to approve the Abington Heights Principles and Procedures Manual for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Mr. Moran?
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board approve the agreement between the Scranton Counseling Center and the Abington Heights School District to cooperate in the implementation of the Student Assistance Program for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Acker, ask the board consider a motion to approve the NEIU Student Assistance Program Letter of Agreement for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Next item of business is a listing of uses of the facilities, excuse me. Incredible list of pages. I was amazed.
I like the new organization and the new chart.
Yeah, yep, that's
yeah.
our new software, right? Master library, so we're doing things electronically now with scheduling.
It was great. Very interesting. Is there any unfinished business?
Just a quick reminder, next week, the IT committee is going to be meeting. The agenda's out there, a draft agenda. It may change a little bit, but we're going to talk about a lot of things, namely antivirus, some new Chromebooks, some interesting things we're doing with badges and QR codes, single sign-on, which will make everybody's life a little easier, transportation software, and also integration of test data results.
Yeah.
So this is pretty cool because there's a lot of analysis that's involved. So there's different ways to, to get insights with integrated data. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, my favorite, AI tools. So I think, I think we're going to have a nice agenda.
And what time and date?
Oh, yes, August 14th, that's a week today at 6:30 here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other new business? In that case, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie's going to turn it off, but just 2 seconds.